although farming's been going for several thousand years in Scotland, no one had done a baseline or an estimate of where we are. What state is farming in? Is it declining? Is it okay? So that was the purpose, to find out in terms of 30 or 40 different variables with the state of farming. So we asked a range of farmers, leaf, organic, commodity. Commodity just means farmers who don't adhere to a particular system, to volunteer to offer their fields for us to look at. We definitely found that as far as we could detect, many fields were in what you might call an unsafe zone. That they are beyond what should be sustainable. And it's important that even in a fairly advanced and lowish rainfall area like East Scotland, and it is low compared to many parts of the world, where the soil should be in pristine condition, they are degrading, and there's no question of that. And I think they're probably degrading at a faster rate in England. The results were very interesting because it showed that these different groups, all farming the same crops, had managed to drive biodiversity and some aspects of ecological function in slightly different ways. And we aren't quite sure how they'd done that. Clearly the organic people had tended to drive the biodiversity in one way and the commodity in another. And the interesting thing about leaf farmers was that they tended to span the range, so that we aren't quite sure why this was the case. It seems to be leaf is a philosophy that is applied to a wide range of farming systems. It doesn't say you have to do this. It's a broad approach which, when applied to all these different systems, results in a kind of spreading of the biodiversity. And this we find this was a new finding. In fact, we're not trying to say that organic or commodity or leaf are better or worse than each other, but in any overall assessment, you have to consider these kind of differences. And also we found that the more uniform a system is, if an organisation promotes a particular type of farming and says you must do that, then the biodiversity at a regional scale across Scotland becomes more defined, closer. And the greatest biodiversity at a large scale is produced by a kind of scheme which says, well, follow these principles, but basically adapt them to your local circumstances and do what you like. And again, leaf tended to be a bit better in that respect, creating more species diversity when added up over the kind of whole of the farming area in Scotland. The kinds of things that farmers would need to consider daily and yearly and over decades would be increasing their soil carbon, reducing the compaction of the soils, that's the density of the soils, reducing the nitrogen inputs and losses, managing phosphorus fertiliser over a long period, and increasing what we call the broadleaved weed flora of their infield areas. It's the broadleaf weeds that tend to support much of the invertebrate, the insect and spider biodiversity. So those are 5 massive challenges because they all imply some sort of negative cost. The real challenge is to maintain your yield while making all those savings. And none are achievable within 1 year. You would need to work on these over time. Maybe within 5 or 10 years you would see big changes in the soil factors, and within 2 or 3 years you would see changes in the broadleaf biodiversity and food webs. That's the time scale we're talking about. It's taken 50 years or more of very intense farming to degrade soils to the point we've got to now. It'll take that sort of time to get things back. There are no quick solutions.